Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto had to make a painful pact with the new Hyuga clan leader Hanabi to marry Hinata, Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Naruto, the voice was accompanied by a slap to the face. Come on, wake up. Slap. Naruto-kun, wake up. Slap. At this point he began to realize that he was this Naruto guy. Naruto-kun, please wake up. Slap. Naruto-kun wa. I'm up just, stop slapping me, Naruto said as he sat up rubbing his cheeks. Regaining his bearing, he recalled the news that had knocked him on his, both of you are pregnant. Yes, Hinata answered as she and Hanabi embraced her husband happily, isn't that great news? Of course it is, Naruto replied, returning the embrace, however his mind was still trying to grasp the situation. He tried to hide his turmoil by putting on a smile, but hiding secrets from one Hyuga was like trying to keep a mouse away from cheese. Are you alright, Naruto? Hanabi asked, aren't you happy? Yes, I am, just a lot to take in, Naruto said running a hand through his hair. It's alright to be nervous, Hanabi said trying to assuage her husband's anxiety, I know you'll be a great father. He just smiled and nodded holding them closer, but still his mind was plagued by troublesome thoughts. Come on boys, let's raise a glass to our fearless leader. Kiba and Izuka cheered loudly. Hear hear, chimed in Choji Akamaiki. Yush, Naruto-kun's flames of youth have exploded. Shouted Rock Lee as he raised his own glass which had to be wrestled away by his teammate, Neji Hyuga. Don't be such a loudmouth Kiba, drawled out Shikamaru Nara. Come on, Shikamaru, our boy knocked up the Hyuga princesses. Shikamaru just shook his head, a smirk on his face. I have to admit I never thought I'd see Neji blow his top like that. The Hyuga in question fixed the Nara with his glare. I don't believe the rest of you would have taken it well if it had been your cousins. Good thing Naruto's not interested in my family then, Shikamaru replied. So Naruto, how are you feeling? Don't think I've ever heard you keep your trap shut this long. The man in question took a swig from his glass and sighed, honestly, scared as hell and. Uzumaki, if you hurt my cousins you won't be able to. No, I would never leave Hinata and Hanabi and I'm happy, Naruto said as he looked down, but I'm scared shitless too. Don't worry Naruto, you'll make a fine father, said Choji. I was pretty scared when Ino told me the news, though I didn't faint. The table erupted in laughter, even Shikamaru and Neji let out a few chuckles. When the laughter died down, Kiba patted Naruto's shoulder. Listen man, you stopped a war, you run this village, and you have two pretty girls who are bearing your children, life is good for you. I know, I just never really thought about becoming a father. I had Hinata and then Hanabi and it was enough, Naruto said. Not sure if I'm father material. Naruto, Shikamaru started gaining everyone's attention. You're brash, troublesome, and you're right about not screaming father material. Thanks you lazy bum. Let me finish loudmouth. Like I said, you don't scream father material, but so far you've always done the impossible without any trouble, so, following the mutt's lead, let's raise a glass to our troublesome leader. Naruto smiled as his friends raised their glasses to him, and his glass joined theirs. Cheers. Oh Sakura, thank you. Hinata said as she held up a small toad plush toy. When word had spread of the soon-to-be new additions to the Uzumaki household, Hinata's friends, specifically Ino, decided to throw a baby shower for the mother-to-be. I thought Naruto might like his kid to have something to remember Jiraiya-sama, Sakura said, especially with the way he holds onto that old wallet of his. A toad, forehead, Ino asked. That kid's going to be just as, quirky as Naruto was. We can only pray. I don't think the village could handle another Naruto. So how is our Hokage taking the news? Sakura asked. Naruto is. She was obviously anxious about the subject, a bit nervous. Her own nervousness was shown by her old finger-poking habit resurfacing. Tsunade snorted as she set her glass down. Men tell him that there's a kid on the way and they start sweating. Don't worry Hinata, it happens. I hope you're right Tsunade-sama, Hinata replied sadly. Naruto's been a bit distant since we told him. Well, have you talked to him about it? Sakura asked. It's not easy, Hinata muttered, he's so stubborn, and always changes the subject. Just keep pressing the issue, Sakura said. Naruto always puts up a tough front for people but he forgets about himself. I know, don't worry, Hinata said, but let's not talk about this now. And so the celebration of life continued on joyously. The wall was great for support as the world spun around him. He really shouldn't have let Kiba talk him to the bottom of those last couple bottles. Naruto spent a few minutes fumbling with his pocket until he managed to fish out the key, unlock the door, and stumble into his home. After failing to close the door even remotely quietly, he headed up the stairs and came to stop in his doorway. Naruto looked at the 2 stars that had shined down on his life. Going to Hinata's side, he brushed a silk lock from the face he was grateful to wake up next to for the rest of his life. Stirring from her sleep, she looked up at him. Naruto. Hinata. He smiled down at her reverently. I'm really drunk. She wrinkled her nose as she took a whiff. I can smell you from here Naruto. I'm sorry, he said with his head down low, I'll go clean up. Nearly falling on his as he stood, Naruto staggered into the bathroom. Slowly he rid himself of the beer-soaked clothes and rid his breath of the same smell, then splashed some water on his face. The cold water wake-up was all his fears needed to come straight to the surface of his mind. I'm shrunk. He ran a hand through his hair as the anxiety began to build. I'm going to be a father and I'm shit-faced. What kind of example am I shedding? Stopping himself, he took a deep breath to calm the storm brewing in his head. Then, slowly, he exhaled and had a laugh. I'm worrying over nothing. The kids aren't even here yet, Naruto said, making the mistake of letting his guard down with nerve-wracking thoughts lurking in his mind. But, they will be soon and who knows how long I'll be drunk, what is the matter with me? Knock. Knock. Naruto. Honey, are you okay? Asked Hinata, her voice laced with worry. I'm fine. Are you sure, because it sounds like you're talking to yourself? What no, there's an Anbu in here. The drunk side of his mind patted him on the back for the quick thinking, delivering important messages. The sober side of his mind just called him an idiot. Naruto-kun, you do remember I'm a Hyuga, was the deadpan response. His face immediately met his hands, only to prevent it from getting acquainted with the wall. Then Hanabi's voice joined her sister's. Please Naruto, talk to us. Normally, he would never speak of his fears because he wanted to be strong for them, but a few bottles really opens a person up. I'm scared, he admitted as he opened the door with head bowed down in shame, of what kind of father I'll be. It's okay, Hanabi said, holding him close. I told you it normal, to be a little scared. I'm not a little shard. It pained them to hear the helplessness in his voice. I mean, the first time I met my fasher I decked him. Right in his fucking fash. The only thing I know to do as a fasher is to not shield a demon in my kid. Naruto, Hanabi said, gently helping him to the bed, you're not doing this alone. You have us. Hinata sat next to him, and we're just as lost as you, but we'll get through this together. He embraced both girls tightly. Oh, I love you girls. Since Naruto's talk with his wives, his anxiety had become less of a problem. Of course, his problems had taken a backseat to his wives' problems. They were 4 months into the pregnancy and he was having a hard time dealing with the mood swings. Hinata's gentle nature had turned extremely sour. The slightest thing upset her, but that anger would quickly turn her into an apologetic sobbing mess. Stepping on eggshells didn't even cover the minefield his wife had become. Hanabi was just as bad. Her usually calm demeanor had turned plain frosty, so much so that she sometimes refused to talk to him sometimes. What made the situation worse was that she would sometimes become jealous if he ignored her. Thankfully, they were called mood swings for a reason, so he wasn't constantly dealing with that problem. however he was dealing with another problem alone. 4.5 months of celibacy had not gone well for him, and now he had a new reason to curse the fox. The increased drive had been a problem, but the change had occurred during the end of the war, after which he took notice of the feelings Hinata harbored for him. Now, however, he had to deal with the torture of not being able to touch his wives. His private training grounds had been left looking like an earthquake and hurricane had torn through them at the same time. And he might as well have been a penguin with the effect, or lack thereof, that cold showers had on him. Tugging one out had gone at the window to when one of his Anbu teleported into his home office without knocking. At this point he might as well have been a pent-up ball of frustration, or a teenager, which isn't much of a difference, and he wondered if he should receive a medal, as these past months had been a test of his will and his love for his wives. So there he was sitting in his office filling out form after form, trying to get images of Hinata and Hanabi in less than wholesome positions out of his head. The location certainly didn't help, as he had once convinced Hinata to help him test out the sturdiness of his desk. The kink in his neck reminded him that even his luck had a limit, and the spat he had Hanabi had earned him a spot on the couch. Returning to his paperwork, he was distracted by a knock on the door. Enter. Good afternoon, Naruto, Sakura said joyfully as she entered. How are Hinata and Hanabi doing? Fine. She didn't miss the glum tone in his voice. Doesn't seem like you're in the same boat, Sakura said. I've been trying to be empathetic and gentle with them. But the damn fox keeps screwing me over, Naruto spat out. Oh right, she suddenly found the floor interesting as she remembered what he was speaking of. I'd forgotten about that. Wish I could say the same, Naruto said. Is it really that big of a problem? I wish it wasn't. Right now he really wished it wasn't, but I can't help it, which is why I ended up on the couch last night. I bet you're glad that they're in their second trimester then, Sakura said, placing a stack of files on his deck. Here are the physical of the newest minus. Wait, why should I be happy? The second trimester, Sakura stated obviously, annoyance leaking into her voice. Didn't you even open the book I gave you? Hinata has it, he replied, trying to keep a straight face. So what is it I should be happy about? Shaking her head, Sakura slipped into medic mode. The second trimester is when women are most likely to become. Are you sure? He asked incredulously, because last night Hinata and Hanabi weren't exactly in the mood. It's not like it's an exact science, Sakura said, exasperated with him. So what you're telling me is that Hinata and Hanabi could be horny right now? I guess. Hinata. Hanabi, I'm home, Naruto called out. I'm in the kitchen, honey, Hanabi answered. He walked in to find one of the greatest views in his life. She stood in the light, practically glowing, and he couldn't help the smile that spread across her face. Wrapping his arms around her, he cradled her belly and its precious cargo. You shouldn't leave work early, you have responsibilities to the village. Don't worry, I left a clone. Planting a kiss on her neck, he continued, I want to apologize for last night. No, I'm sorry, Hanabi, and I know it can't be easy. Not for the first time. She was cursing her hormones as his ministrations wreaked havoc on her. Naruto-kun, this kind of apology is why we fought in the first place. Do you want me to stop? Naruto-kun, she began to feel that slow burning need rise. That's not a no. Well, lunch is ready. She turned to face him, her eyes becoming dark with lust. So maybe you can help me work up an appetite. Really? I mean, it would be my pleasure. Well, come then, Hokage-sama, she said, taking his hand and leading him to the bedroom. Oh, hold on, Naruto said before quickly jotting down a note. Now let's go. What was that? Just reminding myself to thank someone, Naruto said happily before picking up his lover. Now let's go work up an appetite. Remember to give Sakura a raise. There they lay, an exhausted, sweaty mess, but utterly sated. It had been a new experience for both of them. The most difficult part lay in finding a comfortable position for Hanabi. At first it had been gentle, but then her gentle cries became pleas and he just let go. After that things become intense as Naruto found he couldn't resist taking her roughly. The hunger she'd seen in his eyes made her feel like a lamb left to a wolf. Every thrust was ecstasy as his massaged all the right places and his hands and mouth worshipped her body. Lips, neck, no part of her was spared his touch. Then the wolf decided it wanted to play with its food. His thrust became slow but deep, his mouth licked and nibbled teasing her, while his hands massaged her tits and tweaked her nipples. It was delicious torture and she could tell he enjoyed watching her squirm. But then it wasn't enough for both of them and his thrust sped up, pounding into her until she was delirious with pleasure. She felt herself going over the edge, the intensity so terrifying and wonderful that she held to his body tightly, his name spilling from her lips. While his thrust became desperate as he told her how tight and hot she was, how fucking good she felt. Then their release hit them like a freight train, they clung to each other tightly as the stars cleared from their eyes. It had been so primal and animalistic that even the memories sent a shiver up her body. Wow, that was, damn, it was something. He held Hanabi close, just enjoying the closeness. Maybe we should deprive you more often, Hanabi said, burying herself deeper into his embrace. God, please don't. 8 months into the pregnancy, the world decided to become ugly. So far, the enemy's movements suggest they're testing out our defenses as well as Suna and Iwa, said Shikamaru in his usual demeanor. Damn, Naruto muttered, has our spy found out their objective or their HQ? It seems to be a cult from the way things are being run, reported Sai, now the captain of the Anbu. They recruit from smaller villages preaching that shinobi are the reason there's war, that we need to be wiped, and it seems a lot of people are inclined to agree judging by how fast they grew. As for the HQ, our spy has nothing. Send word to the patrols, I want messengers and hawks on standby. First whiff of trouble, send out the warning. Naruto had hoped that the peace would last longer, but rarely was the world cooperative. If this group is moving against the 5 major powers, then they're fools or a serious threat. I'd suggest placing extra guards around the village, Hokage-sama. Even when confronted with a threat, Shikamaru still managed to sound bored. Right. If Shikamaru thought it best to err on the side of caution, Naruto was inclined to agree, since his lazy friend was usually 50 steps ahead of everyone. Still, Naruto liked to be unpredictable. Have an Anbu squad do random sweeps of key location, anyone or anything that isn't supposed to be there, bring it in. Dismissed. Yes sir, Sai said, heading to carry out his orders. A couple years of peace and now this, troublesome. Shikamaru could already see the thoughts running through Naruto's head. Don't worry Naruto, we've worked too hard for this peace, these punks are nothing but a pain. You're right, Naruto said, exhaustion in his eyes, and still this piece is made of glass, still stained by the bad blood. The alliance helped, but it's on us now to help it grow. Ensuring peace for the world, nothing's ever easy with you. A small grin worked its way onto Shikamaru's face, knowing that he'd still follow the blonde knucklehead no matter how troublesome. For now, go home and rest, I'm sure the wives miss you. Being in and out of meeting the whole day, Naruto was grateful for the break. Patting his advisor on the shoulder, Naruto decided to have a nice stroll home. Along the way, he saw some kids playing in the street and smile spread across his face. Soon those would be his kids playing on the street, hopefully without the cloud of war over their heads. Shaking those thoughts from his head, he walked into his home. The past few months had been hectic in and out of his home. Recently these cultists had begun to move against Iwa and Suna and now Konoha, though at first it had seemed like random attacks on small villages by missing ninja. Of course, Iwa and Suna had sent out squads to protect the villages. That's when things became problematic, because the squads failed to report in. Not willing to take another chance, both villages sent out elite squads. From the townspeople's accounts, both villages had pieced together stories that were too similar to be ignored. The cultist had come in, set up shop, and waited for the attackers to strike. The defenders had fought valiantly and seemed to be beating the aggressors back, but then the enemies used strange silver chains to incapacitate everyone, but instead of killing the cultist, kidnapped all the ninja. Seeing this as an opportunity rather than a problem, Naruto used Jiraiya's spy network to sniff out the assailants. It had taken 2 months to piece together the evidence pointing towards the cult and just as long to slip one of his people into the group. The time spent in the office had made the air tense at the Uzumaki household. The late hours had not made him the most attentive husband, the only saving grace being that, as clan heiresses, Hinata and Hanabi were used to the whole coming before the few. Still, as he found his wife in the sipping on tea, he knew he had to do right by them. "You're home early." He cringed at the small bit of frost in Hinata's voice. "Yeah, Shikamaru is keeping an eye on things." He sat next to her. "He thought I could use the break, and I thought that I haven't spent enough time with you or Hanabi." "Naruto, I understand. I know you do." He wrapped his arm around her. "But I know it hasn't been easy on you and Hanabi, and I am so grateful that you understand, but the world's giving me a break and I don't plan to waste it." "Naruto, oh." Hinata clutched her belly, worrying Naruto. "Hinata, are you okay?" She giggled at seeing him react to surprises just like he did when he was a boy. "Don't worry, Naruto-kun, it was just the baby kicking. Can't believe I've been working so long that I've actually missed this." He gently placed his ear to her belly. Thumb. That little noise may as well have been a thunderclap, because it hit him that this was his child. His child. The stress, the worry, the fear, those dark clouds were blown away by that little thunderclap. "That's out, kid." He couldn't help the smile that went from ear to ear or the tears that welled in his eyes. "Yes, Naruto-kun, that's our son." "Son. Our son. Our son." He thought the little thunderclap had been something, "our son." The tears brimming in her eyes were all he needed to know that she felt the same. "I think I just fell in love with you again." The world had given him one hell of a break. "Even your kids are troublesome, Naruto," Shikamaru said to himself. It had been during a council meeting with liaisons from Suna and Iwa. The intel he had sent had helped both villages to terminate the attackers before they ever reached the village and successfully capture the unit's leaders. Then Konohamaru rushed in and shouted that Hanabi's water broke and that she was being rushed to the hospital by Moegi and a few Hyuga attendants. Now some men can be calm when told their wife has into labor. Naruto is not one of those men, so his response was to jump through the window of the council chamber and run like a madman to the hospital, forgetting he knew the Hiraishin. This had left his poor advisor, Shikamaru, to explain the situation and then excuse himself, along with counselors Kiba, Choji, Neji, and Shino. Now Naruto's friend stood in the waiting room waiting to hear any news. "What do you crap, where's Hinata?" Kiba shouted. Before the group ran off in the same fashion of their leader, Neji spoke up. "Don't worry, Hinata is out with and I've sent a messenger to inform them. Let it be said that Hyuga are always prepared, they should arrive shortly." "Someone should probably tell Naruto," Choji said, "or he'll jump through another window." "I've told him already," Neji said calmly. "There shouldn't be any more excitement. We need a doctor, my friend's going into labor." They all looked over to see Ino helping Hinata into a wheelchair. Ino came over to them as the nurses took Hinata to a room. "What happened?" "We were getting lunch when a messenger came and told us that Hanabi had gone into labor," Ino said, still looking harried from getting her friend to the hospital, "and that must have been a bit too much for Hinata because she went into labor." "So much for no excitement," Shikamaru said, rubbing his temples. "I'll go tell Naruto." "All right, now there should be no more excitement," said Choji. Just then Tenten rushed in with Lee on her back. "I need a medic." This time the group rushed over to Tenten's side. "What happened?" Handing her teammate to the medics, Tenten sat down as one of the medics looked her over. "Ambush. They resembled the description of those Rouge Ninja. We took them down, but Lee took a blow to the head." "I'll go inform Shikamaru," said Neji, walking down the hall. "Well, there should be no more. Perhaps it's best we not tempt fate anymore, Kiba," came the deep baritone of voice of Shino. "Come one, Shino," Kiba said boisterously. "What else could happen?" "Kiba." Everyone turned to a brown-haired girl, then back to their friend, who stood to greet her. "Hey Amy." He said happily because last time he had seen her they had a fantastic night. It's really good to see you again. What are you doing here? The nervousness in her voice set him a bit on her edge. My friends' wives went into labor. I came here for support, wanting to get the awkwardness out of the way. He took his usual route, the direct one. Why are you here? Well, being of like mind to Kiba, she chose direct route too. You should be the first to know. I'm pregnant. Quote, comma, dot, quote. The moment of silence felt longer than it actually was. At a loss for a response, he said the only thing he could think of, let's not tempt fate anymore, you guys. While that was happening, Naruto was rushing to Hinata's room after promising Hanabi he would be back. He took a breath to calm his nerves and stepped into Hinata's room. His job right now was to comfort his wives and be there for them. Not to have a panic attack in the middle of a hall, and that was what he planned to do as he took Hinata's hand. Hey honey, you alright? Yeah, she began to breathe as a contraction hit. I'm fine. Don't worry, I'll be here, Naruto said as he created a durable clone to be by Hanabi's side, which he felt guilty for, but promised to make up for it. Okay, oh god, just stay with me, she squeezed his hand tightly. Naruto didn't know how long he stood by her side waiting for the doctor, Sakura, to come in and say Hinata was ready. While he waited, Naruto had pledged undying love twice, assured her that she still looked her beautiful, was shouted at twice, cursed 6, and promised to not leave her side 4 times. In that time his clone had popped when Hanabi punched it in the throat. Kunoichi births were dangerous. When he had sent another clone, it had gotten an earful for not really being there. Despite coming in second, it was Hinata who went first. Alright Hinata, the baby is crowning, Sakura said, scrubbed up and ready to deliver her friend's child. I'm going to need you to push. Okay. Come on, push, and that was exactly what Hinata did. Sweat pouring from her brow, she pushed with everything she had. She fought through the excruciating pain and kept pushing. Holding on to Naruto as he said everything he could think of, though the only thing that really helped was breaking the bones in his arms. There was a reason that it had to be a medical ninja that delivered the child of a kunoichi. A hysterical living weapon in pain was bad for everyone nearby. Come on baby, push. What the fuck do you think I are? It had felt like an eternity, and it was a godsend when Sakura said, one last push. Using what little strength she had left, Hinata brought her child into the world. Cleaning and covering the baby, Sakura placed the child in Naruto's arms. Congratulations Naruto, it's a healthy baby boy. As he looked down at his son, all of his previous worries fell apart, because now he knew he was going to be the best damn father he could be for his children. Rocking the screaming child, Naruto smiled down at his wife, and even as exhausted as she was, Hinata still smiled back, holding out her arms. Gently, he placed his son in Hinata's arms and laid his forehead on hers, because no words could convey how grateful he was for all she and Hanabi had given him. Their trust, their respect, their loyalty, their love, and now a family. Naruto, Hanabi's gone into labor, said Shizune. Laying a kiss on Hinata's cheek, he went to be with Hanabi, and thanking heaven for allowing him to be by Hanabi's side. I'm so damn lucky. A man wearing a green bandana and armor barged into the office of his leader. Sir, it's finally happened. The Jinchuriki's children have been born. Finally our time has come, the man seated behind the desk chuckled darkly as plans formed in his head. He was a thin man wearing simple pair of green robes, like a missionary, brown hair hanging in a low ponytail, and a pair of spectacles resting on thin nose. Thank you Ishida for making my day. You're welcome, Sanzo. In a maternity ward, a man stood surrounded by his friends as he looked down on his 3 children. That's right, 3. Naruto and Hanabi had gotten an unexpected surprise in the shape of a fraternal twin to their daughter. Today was the day that his wives could go home with their children. Cute kids Naruto. Naruto turned to see his cyclops of a teacher. Never thought I'd live to see your kids. Kakashi-sensei. Naruto clapped the man on his shoulder. I'm glad you came. Of course I'd be here, Kakashi said, looking down on the black-haired boy with whiskers on his face. So that's your son. Yeah, your mother and father would be happy for you, Kakashi said, placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder, and Jiraiya-sama would be proud that you bagged two beauties. Naruto chuckled, remembering his sensei's antics fondly. Yeah, he'd probably be asking for details. When a new life comes into the world, we think of those that have left it. Where did that come from? Naruto asked. You sound like Sandaime Gigi. Well, I am getting up there. Come on, Kakashi-sensei, you got a lot of time left, Naruto said as he began to head to a meeting. Thanks, but I'm pushing the ninja life expectancy as it is, Kakashi replied as he followed Naruto. But enough small talk, how are we going to handle this organization? I'll be calling a meeting between the 5 Kage to crush this problem, Naruto said seriously. Another Akatsuki won't rise, not on our watch. The rest of the way was spent in silence. Arriving at the council chambers, Naruto took a seat and addressed the gathered members and liaisons. I apologize for not being here, counselors, representatives, let's get down to business. As I was saying to your counselors, Hokage-sama, the Kumo liaison, Jay, said, Kumo thanks you for the information. It saved many lives, and Raikage-sama wishes to meet with you to discuss what action to take against this threat. Excuse me, Jay-san, stepped in the Kiri liaison, Hachi, but Mizukage-sama wishes to meet with Hokage-sama as our intel points to their base of operations being located in Water Country. Now wait a minute, the info from our interrogation pointed towards this group moving against our village in force, said Jay. They probably fed you false information, countered Hachi. Then her turn to Naruto, Hokage-sama. The same could be said of you. Jay barked out, Hokage-sama, we need your help, any new intel that could help us fend off this attack. Don't be a fool, if our intel is right we can squash these bastards now, Hachi said. And if you're wrong you'll have wasted time and soldiers on a goose chase, Jay shot back, a defensive move will ensure safety until we can. Jay, Hachi, thank you for delivering these messages, but I will be meeting with your leaders face to face along with the Tsuchikage and Kazekage. Hokage-sama, surely you can't expect the 5 Kage to meet in these circumstances. Mizukage-sama, like the other Kage, has a duty to guard her village. Yes, I can. The steel in Naruto's eyes showed the liaison how strongly he felt about the matter. It was the distance between our villages that allowed the Akatsuki to happen. I want these idiots stopped, not by one village, but by 5, to show everyone that we stand together. I don't believe the Mizukage will agree to that. Whatever else Hachi was going to say was stopped by Shikamaru. The Kages can decide that for themselves. You two are here to discuss the information that you retrieved, so let's get started on that. And so they did, giving the council all the info they had gathered. Then, the council sent the liaisons away and discussed what to do with the information. After long hours of debate and discussion, they decided to send the information to their spy and see what could be found out. Naruto sighed as he popped the bones in his back, glad to be done for the day. Hinata, Hanabi, and the children had been brought home by a fawning Sakura and Moegi, who cooed over the babies before taking their leave. Going upstairs, he walked into the bedroom but didn't find his wives sleeping soundly, only an empty bed. Having a good idea where they might be, he headed to the children's room that he had fixed up months earlier. There he found Hinata and Hanabi sleeping soundly next to the cribs of their children. He laughed quietly to himself as he went over and looked down on his children. Naruto and Hinata's son, Kato, slept quietly. His whisker-marked cheeks twitched and stirred a bit when Naruto ran a hand over his head. Feeling the soft dark hairs growing on his little head, Naruto was still amazed at what he and Hinata had created. He went over to his twins Haruhi and her brother Keiji. Haruhi's hand ended up with his blonde hair, and her own set of big blues, and like Kato she had whisker marks as well. Then, there was the surprise, Keiji, blonde hair like his sister but his mother's pale eyes and lacking his own whisker marks. Making clones, he had them pick up his wives and calm them when they began to stir. For now he would sit and watch over his kids, and that's what he did. For a bit he forgot about being Hokage and enjoyed being a father. Responsibility, however, doesn't like letting a man sit on his too long, which is why an hour after, he felt the presence of one of his Anbu in his room. Sighing, he placed his little girl down. Report. I'm sorry to bother you, Lord Hokage, but a man claiming to be part of the Kiri Liaison's guard just collapsed at our gates, riddled with injuries. Then keep him locked up in a room and question him. I don't see why. He says he'll only speak to you, Lord Hokage. All right, take me to his room. And so, in the dead of night, the Hokage left his home to perform his duty. Entering the hospital room, he raised an eyebrow at the excited state of the room. Doctors and nurses ran about attempting to stabilize the patient. Allowing himself a moment, the Hokage addressed the nearest staff member. A nurse, what is going on here? Lord Hokage, the patient was in critical condition. We've been keeping him alive, but he might not make. A situation that occurred far too often in this line of work, but he had a job to do. He just wished he could shake off the feeling in his gut, the instinct that always told him something bad was coming around the corner. I hear you wanted to speak with me. Lord Hokage, the Kiri Liaison is. What? He's a what? The bad feeling in his gut grew bigger. And I am impost, the sounds of the heart monitor crying out, and the shouts of doctors trying to save the man's life was muted. The only thing Naruto heard was the last word the man uttered, repeating over and over in his head. Imposter. The early words of the Kiri liaison rushed to the front of his mind. Trying to get him to ignore the Raikage's request, the paper-thin excuse he tried to give, trying to get him to send a force to Kiri. Or better yet, lure me there personally, but for what reason, Sue? No. Naruto transformed into his Kyuubi mode and searched for his family and confirmed his worst fears. At his home he sensed his Anbu guards down, and in the nursery he felt Hinata and Hanabi were unconscious and only two of his children. In a flash he disappeared from the room and flashed into the nursery. Hinata. Hanabi. Naruto ran to his wives, relief rushing through him when the both opened their eyes. Naruto-kun. Both women cried out, clutching onto him, but they quickly remembered something more important, the children. Both women ran to their children. Hanabi wept happily as she held her twins to her chest happily, but Hinata screamed. Naruto, they took Kato. I know, I'm looking for him now. Naruto reached out and found a baby's chakra signature, and then another, and then another, and then another. What the hell? There was something wrong. Some of the chakra signatures were different, but hundreds of them felt the same, each one giving off negative emotions, and not a one felt like his son's. They're hiding Minato from me. Kato. They took him. Hinata wept, holding onto Naruto. Please get my baby back. I will, Hinata. Without a second thought, Naruto teleported to the nearest chakra signature. Hanabi moved to one of the unconscious Anbu and kicked him awake. If the Anbu haven't sealed the village, and I don't see every damn shinobi and kunoichi out there looking for these bastards in the next 5 minutes, I'm chopping of your manhood. Hi. Hanabi knelt next to her sister. Hinata, I'm sorry, but Naruto will bring him back, then these bastards are going to pay. No, I'm going out there. An Anbu stood in front. Hinata. I'm sorry, Hinata-sama, but you're still recovering from childbirth. As you medic, I can't allow you to go out there. Hinata slumped to the ground, beginning to sob, as Hanabi came to her side. A gray cloaked figure ran through the streets, a small bundle held carefully in his arms. Sweat dripped along his forehead as he turned another corner, remembering the plan. Just as he was about to duck into an alley, a bright light flashed in front of his eyes. Pain blossomed in his face and he fell back, the bundle in his arms taken from him. Naruto lifted up the blanket and saw the chubby face of a brown-haired baby. Not what you expected. Naruto looked down at the man, wiping from his mouth. Well, we got one more surprise. Naruto felt a chakra spike coming from the baby, and he pulled the blanket further down to reveal a piece of paper. Surprise. The blast ripped through the calm of the night, the flash briefly coloring the street red. Citizens looked through their windows, the brave ones running out to see what was going on. When a ball of fire landed in front of the smoke, everyone stepped back, until they saw the man inside. All civilians, back to your homes. Naruto tossed the would-be kidnapper onto the ground and checked the baby over for any scrapes and bruises. Hey, it alright, it okay, Naruto said, rocking the baby gently. Naruto. A trio of familiar faces landed in front of him. What the hell is going on? Shikamaru, Kiba, Neji, good you're here, Naruto said as he handed the baby to Shikamaru, and held up a gray cloak. Kiba, I need you to run a message. Anyone wearing these cloaks is to be arrested. They're also holding infants hostage. Tell everyone to look for an exploding tag on the child's body. I'm on it, Kiba said and took off. Neji, I need you to get every Hyuga on a squad searching for these bastards. Hi, Shikamaru. Go tell Sakura to get the hospital ready, they're about to have a lot of new patients, Naruto said, creating hundreds of clones, and then I need you to take a squad of Anbu secure and detain the liaisons from Kiri and Kumo. I'm not taking any chances. On it, Shikamaru replied, struggling to hold the fussy baby, while Naruto took off. Great. They flew across the rooftops like sparks splashing on the ground. Every so often they would burst into blooms of red and orange. The cries rose steadily over the village, as child after child was brought to the hospital. Every ninja in the village was out scouring for their leader's child and securing the village. Naruto cursed as he saved another child from an explosion, doing his best to not kill the woman lying at his feet. How many children did you take? Hokage-sama. Naruto turned to the Chunin who landed before him. The northeast quadrant of the village has been secured, and Haruno-senpai sends word that hospital is handling the new patients fine, but she'll need some of the field medics to come in soon. I'm also sorry, but there had been no reported sighting of your child. Take this child to the hospital, Naruto ordered, handing off the small bundle, and tell Sakura-chan to take as many medics as she needs. Hi, the Chunin replied, giving a quick salute before taking off. Naruto closed his eyes, spreading his awareness across the village. Good, only a few more left. He sped off toward the next chakra signature, trying to keep a handle on his anger. You're starting to lose your head, came the rumbling voice in his head. Calm down. I'm trying. Iroh raced towards the gates, conviction burning in his eyes. This was a man that would not be stopped. His esteemed master had personally handed him the mission to capture the Hokage's child. He would not fail. He could not fail. Master, wait for me, I will. Face met foot, and Iroh was driven into the ground, with the child flying into the air. Fortunately, the baby didn't fall long because a pair of strong hands caught and cradled him gently. Naruto ripped the repulsive seal off and ground his heel into Iroh's face. You are just gonna keep eating my boot. Naruto held his boy close, not able to stop the tears that fell from his eyes and the shaky breaths from the overwhelming relief flowing through his body. The sound of chuckling drew Naruto's attention to Iroh, so he removed his foot. Did I miss something? As a matter of fact, you did, Iroh replied, pulling an empty syringe out of his pocket. Question is, how much is it going to cost you? Naruto's eyes widened. All the air left his lungs, as he saw the color slowly draining from his son's face. Kato, no. Hinata. Hanabi cried out as her sister fell to her knees. Hinata, what's wrong? I don't know, but, Hinata held her hand to her chest. It hurt so much, like someone was driving a knife into it. I don't know. The memories of how she came to be here wormed their way to the front of her mind. That awful pain in her chest had dragged her to the hospital. The Anbu guarding the doors had tried to send her home, but one look from her told them what would happen if they didn't move. Then it was the nurses who tried to sit her down, and convince her to wait for her husband. Any other day her response would have been gentle. Beep, beep. The Anbu had to pry her fingers from a nurse's neck, and when the situation was under control, Hinata was taken to her husband. The moment her eyes met her husband's, the pain in her chest grew deeper. Where is he? Beep, beep. Just like everyone else, he had tried to placate her, to tell her everything was alright, to lie to her. Where is he? Beep, beep. He took her hand and guided her into a private room, where she was finally reunited with her son, Kato-kun. Beep, beep. Every piece of equipment, and the drugs being pumped into him, told the doctor in her how desperately the patient was clinging to life. All the mother saw through her tears was her poor son. Frail and small, a mess of wires and machines, a sick mockery of her happy baby boy. No, she fell to her knees, tears running down her face, and struggling to breathe through choked sobs. Beep, beep. Hinata. Naruto rushed to her side, and trying to comfort her, "It all right, ease." No, no. Hinata cried out, slapping his arms away. He tried again, but she shoved him away. No. Beep, beep. Hinata, please, Naruto begged as tears began to well in his eyes, trying again, "I'm sorry." No. Beep, beep. How long has she been in there? Sakura asked, sitting down next to Naruto. She took a look at the clock and sighed when she saw it was about 2 in the morning. She had a long shift ahead of her, but her employees had been kind enough to cover for her. She hasn't left, Naruto replied, and Sakura frowned as she took in his appearance. Messy clothes, disheveled hair, and bags under his eyes that she was sure matched her own. Saying that he was a complete shit heap would be putting it lightly. I don't know what to do. Where are the kids and Hanabi-chan? At home, she needs her rest and I didn't want them in here all night. That's good, it could have been worse, Sakura pointed out, if you hadn't gotten him to me when you did. Be honest with me, is going to be alright after this? Sakura sighed, she always hated this part, more now than ever. He'll live, but there might be some problems when he's older. Like what? The poison attacked his nervous system, nearly caused his heart to fail. I was able to stop the poison but not all the damage. Meaning, he may have problems moving when he gets older. How bad? He might be able to move his pinky toe, or he might not be able to move his arm. It's too early to tell, Sakura said, but tried to lighten the mood. But he's alive and that's one thing to be thankful for. Sorry that I can't see it like that, Naruto said, because from where I'm standing I got the shit covered, short end of the stick. She could tell this was going nowhere. Any idea of what we're going to do with all those kids? The icing on the cake, Naruto said with a bitter chuckle. He leaned back and rested his head against the wall. Who knows where these lunatics got so many kids, and how many of them are from Konoha? I've got Shikamaru out right now trying to find out if anyone else's child was taken. His head was starting to hurt, and Ino has, who knows how many, interrogations going on. I'm just waiting for their reports. My patients aren't any better off. Some of them have signs of malnourishment, others have got some untreated injuries, Sakura said, sick to her stomach about the whole thing. Those poor kids. Hopefully we can find their homes and send them back. As cold as it sounded, Naruto hoped they could send them homes quickly. There were only so many orphanages in the village, and only so much financial support he could give them. Both turned their attention to the people walking down the hall. Naruto, we got what we could from the kidnappers, Shikamaru said. So, what do we have? Naruto asked. You're not gonna like it. Shikamaru. The lazy Nara sighed and he motioned for Ino to start. Like we thought, these people are members of the group we've been dealing with. What we didn't know is that most of them are militia. You mean civilians? Naruto asked. Civilians with some training, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, Ino added. We've got most of the parents of the kids we saved tonight locked in our cells. Naruto sat there shocked and silent, but Sakura was outraged. Who could do that to their own child? Still not the whole picture, Ino said, handing Naruto 2 files. That first is the names and intel of those who seem to have undergone some intense, and I mean intense, brainwashing or torture. Well, that short stick just got some puke on it, Naruto said. Seeing their confused looks, Sakura spoke up. Don't ask, just keep going. That second one right there, you're really not going to like that one, Ino explained. It's a list of all the prisoners that died. What? Naruto asked through grit teeth. I'm sure I gave explicit, and clear, orders to keep them alive. We didn't kill them, Hokage-sama, Ino replied, pointedly using his title, they killed themselves. He was all out surprise, so he just asked, how? Most of them were cyanide pills, and we put a stop to that fairly quickly with a genjutsu. Good. But, Naruto asked, motioning for her to continue. Once we took their cyanide pills, some of the more unstable ones bit off their tongues. Seeing the damn near murderous look in his eyes, Ino rushed the rest out. We put a stop to that and their suicide attempts, no more trouble. Alright, Naruto sighed, pointing to his Jonin commander, Shikamaru, your turn. So, Captain Jakku, has the plan unfolded as I predicted? Yes, Sanzo-sama, no doubt the Hokage has realized the purpose of our attack, Captain Jakku reported. He was a mountain of man, covered head to toe in plate armor and axe and mace strapped to his waist. On his chest he bore the symbol of his cause, 3 black concentric circles with a white X over them. Our preparations complete, Ishida-kun. Yes, Sanzo-sama, everything is in place, Ishida answered, grinning like a madman. The opportunity to fight these shinobi, and take his vengeance were close at hand. He could hardly contain his excitement over what was to come and had to clasp his sword tightly to calm down. Soichiro is itching to taste the blood of a shinobi. Easy, Ishida-kun, we can't afford to be rash, not so close to the end. Of course, Sanzo-sama. Prepare yourselves, men, Sanzo said, rising to his feet, for a new world. That's the long and short of it, Shikamaru said. So this whole operation was just to grab my attention, Naruto said, gripping the armrest tightly to keep himself steady. Kato-kun was the only Konoha child taken tonight. Factor in how easily we were able to obtain their location in water country from brainwashed followers, and that's the only conclusion we can draw, Shikamaru replied. Alright, Naruto said, standing up, send a message to Meidono, inform her we're bringing the 3 battalions to the island where the base is located. T3, Shikamaru asked, that's 60% of our forces. And also tell her that we're raising the entire place, Naruto said, flipping through the folders casually. We'll work out some sort of agreement to compensate her for the lost resources and land. Naruto-kun, you can't be serious, Sakura said, placing a hand on his shoulder. Naruto shrugged her hand off. The hell I can't. These bastards are going to burn. You can go see to your duties or you can be taken to jail cell, Haruno-san. Who do you think you talking to, Baka? Sakura shouted. I'm talking to the former chief of medicine. If she doesn't follow her orders, Naruto said, turning his glare on her. Naruto, you need to calm down, Shikamaru said, stepping between them. You're not thinking rationally, alright. I understand that. You don't understand a goddamn thing. Naruto shouted, pinning Shikamaru against the wall. Is that your wife in there? Is your son fighting for his life in there? Answer me. No. Then shut the hell up and ready the troops, or I'll find someone who will. Naruto spat and shoved Shikamaru away. I'm not going to do that, Naruto, Shikamaru said, placing his hand in the seal for his shadow possession jutsu. Going on this campaign for revenge could be exactly what the enemy wants. Naruto's eyes turned red as he pulled out a kunai. Shikamaru, you. Naruto-kun, all eyes turned to Hinata. The poor woman was a bigger wreck than her husband, her eyes red from crying. Stop. Hinata-chan. Naruto hurried to her and wrapped his arms around her. Hinata-chan, I'm sorry. I tried to protect him. Please forgive me. Hinata rested her head on his chest. It wasn't your fault, Naruto-kun. I know you did everything you could. She wrapped her own arms around him. I'm sorry I made you feel that way, but you have to listen to Shikamaru-kun. But I have to do this. I understand, but this isn't you. You would never seek revenge. Hinata stared up into his eyes. Please, I almost lost my son today. I don't want to lose my husband. Okay. I'm sorry. Naruto turned to Shikamaru. Sorry about that, Shikamaru. You to Sakura. It's fine, Baka. Sakura replied, glad to see him back. Thanks, Hinata-chan. Don't know where we would be without you, Shikamaru said. Naruto, stay here with her and your kid. I'll gather everyone and start drawing up plans. Thank you Shika-kun, Hinata said and took her husband by the hand, and took him into the room, shutting the door behind them. I'm glad that's over, Ino said, and that Hinata-chan got through that thick head of his. Shikamaru shook his head and walked away. The night wasn't over for him. Sakura's thoughts ran along a similar line as she got up to start her shift, but couldn't fight the loud yawn that flew out of her. I really want to sleep. Come on forehead, Ino said taking Sakura's arm, let's get some coffee in you, then I'll lend you a hand around here. Thanks pig, Sakura said before letting out another yawn, I just hope those two will be alright. They will, they have each other. They're fine, Hanabi replied caressing Keiji's hair. How is Hinata? She's fine, Naruto answered, but she won't be coming home for a while. His body fell into the bed, and he only bothered to take off his robes. The night had succeeded in draining away his legendary vitality. And as light began to peek through the windows he wondered if the sun wanted what was left. When he blocked out the sun the bed declared war on him, and no amount of readjusting or repositioning won him the rest her so desperately wanted. At last, he tossed the white blanket to the floor, got out of bed, and marched to the window overlooking his village. The light that kept him up now shined upon the battleground of bitter defeat. How are the kids? You already asked. Quote. It wasn't your fault. But it was. That psychopath was after me, he wanted to hurt me, and he won. His failure, finally too much to bear, brought him to his knees and shameful tears ran down his eyes. In this moment he was not the Hokage who fought to protect his village, he was a father whose heart ached so deeply for his son that ripping it out would have been a mercy. And as he wallowed, mercy did come, not from the depths of morbid self-flagellation, but from another heart full of caring, adoration, and love. Her hands gently held his head to her beast, stroking his hair, as she covered him with soothing words of reassurance. When we're comforted by lovers we drink deep an elixir that puts our mind at ease, that mends our heart, that lulls our body into delicious languor. In Hanabi's arms Naruto finally found the reprieve he'd been longing for, and soon after his eyes closed. Still cradling him, Hanabi brought them both down to the floor, and there she stayed, and there she protected him from all the turmoil tearing at his soul. Alright, we have to assume that any runners sent to Kirigakure are going to be intercepted. If that's going on, we also need to take into account that the Mizukage might be fighting them right now, although I can't imagine how we haven't caught wind of that. We'll divide our forces into two when we set sail. Shikamaru pointed to an island east of Kirigakure. One force will head here and scout the island our prisoners identified as their HQ, and only scout. The other force will come from the south to Kiri and provide support if necessary. Hopefully it isn't. Shikamaru lit a smoke and took a calming drag before continuing. From Kiri we'll stage our main attack, while our second force will serve as a pincer and clean up, to make sure none of them escape. Shikamaru pointed to Kiba. Send messages to the other cage for reinforcements, I don't want to take any chances. I'll get the runners ready, Kiba replied, taking off. Good. Tenten, is Lee awake yet? Hi, Tenten answered. You and he will be presenting all the information you have on the enemies that ambushed you. Understood. Tenten saluted and headed to the hospital. I've got a bad feeling about this, Shikamaru muttered. He really hated going in blind like this. As a shinobi he was used to it, but if the enemy was brazen enough to make an attack on one of the five, then they had to have something up their sleeve. The click of the door startled Hinata from her nap, and she leapt from her chair to see Sakura standing there. Sorry Hinata-chan, I didn't mean to wake you. Hinata relaxed and sat back down, her eyes turning to the heart-wrenching sight of her son. It's fine Sakura-chan. Sakura placed a comforting hand on her friend's shoulder. Kato-chan is going to be fine, I'll make sure of it. Then Sakura went about her duties, checking the monitors, looking for any irregularities, checking his chart, and running a diagnostic jutsu on him. Everything checks out fine, he just needs to rest and recover. Then she turned her critical eyes onto Hinata. The woman was a mess. Her greasy hair stuck out at all angles, and the bags under her eyes almost gave the gentle woman a frightening appearance. Speaking of rest, when was the last time you left this room? Not since I calmed Naruto-kun down. Sakura shook her head and sighed. Hinata-chan is a doctor, I think you'd know better. Come on. She pulled Hinata out of the chair. Let's get some food in you. But I can't leave Kato-kun. Sakura sighed again. Anbu. A woman dropped wearing a dog mask down from the ceiling. Sakura-sama. What are you thinking, allowing her to carry on like this? Hinata kept quiet as Sakura berated the Anbu. Now you watch over Kato. If anything happens, we'll be at the restaurant right outside the hospital, understood? Hi Sakura-sama. Come on Hinata-chan, Sakura said. But. No buts. Sakura admonished, taking hold of her hand again. I don't need Naruto Baka giving himself a heart attack because you passed out. Sakura thanked the waiter as he placed their orders down. She had to stifle a laugh as Hinata dug right in, foregoing her usual manners. I knew you were hungry. Hinata blushed and slowly pulled the fork out of her mouth. Sorry. Don't be. Eat however you like. After those words, both friends ate their meals in comfortable silence. When Hinata finally put down her fork, she realized something she hadn't before. Sakura-chan, I haven't properly thanked you. She tightly clasped her friend's hand. So thank you, for saving my son. I couldn't even imagine my life without him. Hinata took a deep breath, trying to stop another round of sobs. Sakura placed her hand over Hinata's. After everything you and Naruto have done for me, I couldn't do anything less than save Kato-chan. Here Sakura's eyes turned away guiltily. All thing considered, I thought you would be mad. What do you mean? The damage done to Kato's nervous system. You know as well as I do what kind of long-lasting effects that can have, Sakura explained quizzically. Didn't Naruto tell you? No. Hinata's fingers gently slipped from Sakura's and fell into her lap. He must have been trying to protect me. Hi Hinata, I'm sorry I didn't. Sakura's apology died in her throat when Hinata brought up her hand. It's fine. Hinata rose from her seat. Thank you Sakura-chan, I have to get back to Kato-kun. Hinata headed back to the hospital and Sakura couldn't help but hang her head when she heard the sniffles escape from Hinata. Shikamaru knocked on the door from a third time, annoyed that his leader, who had been so bloodthirsty yesterday, was taking his sweet time. Wish I could sleep all day. You already do, Naruto answered, pulling on his flak jacket. Naruto's surprise appearance startled the lazy Nara. He managed to hide it, but he realized that he really needed a nap. Good, you're back to your witty self, Shikamaru drawled as he made a very loud and very obvious yawn. Yeah, I'm sorry for keeping you up, Naruto replied, but the quicker you get on with it, the quicker you can go take a nap. I've started to gather forces for the assault, made a basic plan attack, we'll work out the specifics later. I've done damage control, but right now the people need to hear from their Hokage. Shikamaru finished with another very loud and very obvious yawn. Thanks Shikamaru, I'll take it from here, Naruto said, patting his friend heartily. No, yawn problem, Shikamaru replied. I got it, go get some sleep, I won't wake you unless I need you. Then don't need me for about 12 hours, with that Shikamaru to his leave, and Hanabi made her entrance. She took a moment to stand by Naruto and take his arm in hers, and Naruto took a moment to gaze upon the village once more. It wasn't your fault. I know, Naruto cupped her cheek and gave her a grateful smile, but I'm going to fix it. You had just stopped crying, I didn't want to make it worse, Naruto replied. Hinata had come home and dragged Naruto into his private study, and immediately tore into him for not telling her about Kato's situation. I'm his mother, I deserve to know, Hinata shot back. Naruto sighed and replied, you're right. I just didn't want you to push me away again. Naruto hung his head. It seemed that all he could was the hurt the people cared about. Hinata felt the anger slowly drain out of her, as she realized what this was all about. No matter how strong Naruto's heart was, it was still the easiest part of him to hurt. She strode over to Naruto and gently placed her hands on his cheeks. Naruto, she lifted his head to meet her gaze. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you. Naruto tightly wrapped his arms around Hinata, grateful once more to have married the kindest soul in the world. The two just stayed there, in one another's arms, basking in the comfort they found in each other. Then, slowly, both of them began to laugh as their embrace ended. The stress seemed to have just dissolved for the both of them, and now both could seem to do nothing but laugh with one another. Naruto sighed and kissed Hinata's forehead. We'll get through this, together. Together, Hinata replied, kissing him. I wish I could stay with you a bit longer, but I've got to help with the plans for the attack, Naruto said, get something to eat, and maybe a shower. Hinata would have been insulted, if she couldn't literally feel the dirt on her skin. I will. Good. I can't believe this, Naruto muttered to Shikamaru. They were in the commander's tent waiting for the scouting team's report. Stop complaining, Shikamaru said. If anyone should be complaining, it should be him. A week, that's how long it took to wait for the runners to return. Then he had to oversee the gathering of supplies, make sure Lee calmed down enough to debrief the forces on the combat ability of the enemy, and help Naruto prepare a report for the other cage. He really needed to find a replacement soon. Now he and Shikamaru were waiting on the northernmost island of Kiri's territory, while Kakashi had taken the other half of his forces straight to Kurigakure. Once Kakashi made sure everything was safe and secure there, he'd ask Mei for reinforcements that knew this island the best. I should be out there with the scouting party, Naruto grumbled. If I was an idiot you would be, Shikamaru said, just because you know where a landmine is doesn't mean it can't hurt you. What does that even mean? Naruto asked. Shikamaru sighed. We know they set a trap, but they've got nothing to force it into us. I bet they heard your reputation and realized that if they pushed the right buttons you'd charge in like a rookie without a plan. Good thing your wife can keep you on a leash, or you'd have fallen for this hook, line, and sinker. You're never going to let me forget that one, are you? Shikamaru grinned and said, not a chance. You can't imagine how many nights I'm going to be spending on the couch for pulling rank and forcing him Hinata and Hanabi to stay to home, Naruto said. Speaking of leashes, what's the word from Temari and Suna? Naruto asked. Good, Shikamaru replied. They face the same hit-and-run attacks that everyone else did, but there's a reason Suna and Wind Country haven't been conquered, despite their size. Surprisingly, they'll be the ones sparing the most reinforcements. Great, Naruto said, hopefully, you were wrong about Kiri's situation. Fingers crossed, Shikamaru replied. Hokage-sama, Naruto and Shikamaru looked up as the scout team leader let himself in. Wolf, was your team's mission a success? Shikamaru asked. Yes, sir, Wolf replied, they didn't even know we were watching. Then report, Naruto ordered. Their base is right where the intel said it would be, Wolf began as he unfurled a detail map of the fort on the desk. It's a fortress on the northwestern cliffs of the island. They've got 200-foot cliff drops on all sides except in front of their only entrance which faces southeast, and they've cut down the trees 150 feet in that direction. They've got archers, ballista, and kunai launchers all over that wall. Kunai launchers, are you sure? We counted 15, sir, probably bought off the black market in Snow Country. We thought the cliff sides could be another means of approach, but we spotted large cauldrons on those walls. They also have cannons pointing out to sea. Great. It's either oil, that'll cause our forces slip off the wall and fall into the water, or boiling oil, that'll turn our troops into fried chicken, Shikamaru said. Then there are those cannons. If they could afford those kunai launchers, then I'm betting those guns are ship sinkers. Anything else? Naruto asked. Were you able to get inside? The 150-foot clearing made that a bit tricky, but two of my team, Jiro of Konoha and T of Kumo, knew the camouflage just to. Unfortunately, the enemy seems to have a barrier expert with them. It's a good thing we had T with us. Her expertise in seals prevented them from tripping the alarm. So, a no-go on the infiltration? Shikamaru asked. Didn't say that, sir. Just thought it was a noteworthy moment given how hard Hokage-sama has been working to keep the Big Five united, Wolf replied. One of the other scouts, Shiratsuchi of Iowa, managed to use the Earth River swim to sneak in. Interesting, Shikamaru said. Go on. Well, Shiratsuchi has a Kekkei Genkei that gives him control over magnetism. When he came back, he reported that he sensed mines in the ground, both on the surface and underground at various distances. Without his Kekkei Genkei, he might have hit one. Their leader really did his homework, Shikamaru said. Despite the traps, Shiratsuchi did manage to give us a look inside, Wolf said and pointed to the northeastern side of the fort. The barracks are located here and behind them are the prison cells. Right next to them on the northern corner is the armory. Next to those is a nice and large important looking building. The leader's home, Shikamaru asked. I'd bet a month's wages on it, sir, Wolf replied. Shiratsuchi couldn't find a storehouse, so we assume the food is in that same main building. Also, he noted that there was some sort of pentagram in the main courtyard. Troublesome, Shikamaru muttered. Things were starting to come together. I know that troublesome, Naruto replied. What have you got? Just a hunch, Shikamaru replied, before sighing and saying, I knew they'd really dig in, but this guy really covered his bases. Not to mention that most of our enemies are probably tortured and brainwashed civilians. We can lose a lot of people on this operation. Are you getting cold feet, Shikamaru? Naruto asked. I didn't say that, Shikamaru replied. We're shinobi, getting into where we're not wanted is our job. Naruto smirked and leaned on the table. So what's the plan? First, we have to wait for Kakashi and Kiri. Looks like we're late to the party, Kakashi said to Sakura. Their forces had just arrived on Kiri's doorstep and it looked like Kiri had just finished cleaning up. Bodies had been lined up outside and there were broken siege weapons outside the walls. Identify yourselves. Kakashi and Sakura looked up to see the Mizukage, Mei Terumi, standing on top of the wall, or we will open fire. Mizukage-sama, I'm Jonin, commander of the allied shinobi forces, Hitaki Kakashi, we've come to provide help, Kakashi shouted. Mei leapt off the wall and approached Kakashi and his army, a bit late, don't you think? We apologize for our timing, Mizukage-sama, Kakashi replied, but flashed her his trademark eye smile and added, but I think we can make it up. Sakura-chan. Hi, Sakura said, Medic Corps, supply troops, you're up. In a flash 50 men and women in medical uniforms lined up behind Sakura. Behind them came 20 carts loaded with medical supplies and food. Where do you need us, Mizukage-sama? Mei blinked owlishly and replied, it was only a 3-week siege. Sorry, Mizukage-sama, Kakashi said, our Hokage doesn't know the meaning of overboard. Well, it's best not to look a gift horse in the mouth, Mei replied and turned to Sakura. Sakura, was it? Yes, ma'am. As soon as those words left her mouth the temperature around them skyrocketed. Ma'am, Mei asked as her twitched violently. Oh, boy, Kakashi slapped his forehead. I didn't. I mean what I meant to say was, Sakura sputtered for a response. It was painful watching his former student try to dig herself out of this hole. Forgive my friend, Mizukage-sama, she hit her pretty hard on the way over here. We're sure she has a concussion. Yes, I have a concussion, Sakura agreed quickly. The temperature came down, and Mei looked sympathetically at Sakura. Oh, you poor dear. Kakashi sighed and ordered Sakura to oversee the medical teams and to stay as far away from Mei as possible. Then he turned to Mei. Who would you like to put in charge of food distribution? I have the perfect man in mind, Mei replied. One of my scouts reported seeing a large force amassing on the northern island. What's that about? We found the terrorist headquarters and the allied forces are preparing for the assault. Our mission here was twofold: provide reinforcements and supplies, and ask if you could spare any ships and men. Kiri's knowledge and naval might would be a great asset, Kakashi explained. You can count on it, Mei replied. No one attacks Kiri, and walks away with their life. You'll get you men and 15 of my best ships. Thank you, Mizukage-sama. By the next morning all the preparations for the assault were ready. Shikamaru had split the army in two, one half was waiting in the woods, the other was waiting on the cliff side, and both would make their move once the signal was given. The ships were waiting to move into firing range to keep everyone in the fortress subdued. All that remained was to brief the team that would carry out the most crucial role in Shikamaru's plan. Shiratsuchi, Kazu, and Ro of Iowa, you're the linchpin of plan, so listen up, Shikamaru said. You two possess the same Kekkei Genkai as Shiratsuchi, so all three of you can sneak into the fortress undetected. Once you're inside, your priority is on those weapons guarding the entrance, and the cauldrons. What kind of security can we expect? Heavy, and you'll only use lethal force if necessary, Naruto said. Why? Joe asked. From our intel we learned that a majority of enemies are kidnapped civilians that have been brainwashed into servitude. We don't want this operation to turn into a political mess that turns us into murderers, Shikamaru explained. Once you're done, you'll shoot off a flare to signal the attack, understood? Understood, all three answered. Then move out, Naruto said, and all three did just that. Come on, Shikamaru said, let's go join the force in the woods. It had been 45 minutes since the Iowa trio had been sent off, 45 minutes of silence, and then the bright red flare burned through the sky. That's the signal, Shikamaru said. Earth Jutsu team, give us some cover. A large group flew out of the tree line, their hands flying through seals. In great roar they all called out, Doden, Earth Wall Justu. Giant walls of rock erupted from the ground, creating a barrier that nearly stretched to the walls of the fortress. Charge! Naruto's cry carried out across the field, and soon the army came out of the trees like any angry swarm. The alarms inside the fort were howling like mad, and arrows flew from the wall, while everyone else on the wall was trying to get the heavy weapons to fire. The troops on the cliff were running up the walls like rats after a meal. The men and women the wall, hearing the cry of the alarm, immediately took notice of the shinobi on their walls and desperately tried to tip over the cauldron of oil. Fortunately, the infiltration team had managed to jam the cauldrons in place, and with no trap in their way the ninja climbed right over the wall and began subduing everyone. Kiba put a microphone to his lips and said, everyone down on the ground with your hands on your head, and you won't be harmed. If you resist, you will be taken down by force. Do not attempt to escape, we have ships and men at all exits. It was obvious to everyone that the shinobi army was quickly pushing back the attack, and gaining control over the fort. Kiba sighed as it looked like everything was going smoothly, then a scream went out over the crowd. He looked into the courtyard to see two men dispatching his men with ease. One was giant man in plate armor, swinging a heavy mace in one hand and a giant axe in the other. He was breaking and cleaving men and women with ease. On the other side of the courtyard was a smaller man in green, who laughed as he beheaded a man. Shit, Kiba muttered and used his mic. All units back off the giant and the man in green, we'll need a plan to take them down. You ninja shall die by hand. Jaku roared as he buried his mace in the ground with such force that he caused it to rumble. Is this the best you can do? Pathetic, Ishida said as he kicked away a Kumo Kunoichi. Readying for another attack, he realized that everyone had back off. Projectile just you only, Kiba said, it'll be an easy kill. Before Kiba could give the order to fire, two blurs crashed into both men and threw them into the center of the courtyard. So, I take it one of you is the big boss around here. Both men looked up to see Naruto standing there with his arms crossed. I'd really like to have a word with you. As Naruto looked around, he felt that the assault seemed to only last minutes. Most of the civilians had been subdued easily thanks to Lee's information, and the prisoners were being freed. All that was left was to take care of these two. I'm sorry, Hokage-sama, but those men aren't in charge here. Naruto stared at the men who had just walked out of the main building. I am. You may call me Sanzo. Well, then I guess you're the guy that I'm going to plant headfirst into the ground, Naruto replied. I don't think so, Sanzo replied and snapped his fingers. The pentagram Naruto was standing in lit up like a star. Ropes of light wrapped themselves around Naruto and pulled him down to the ground. I knew someone like you would run right in here, looking for justice. What is this? Naruto growled as he pushed against the light. I suppose you should know, Sanzo said. He walked into the pentagram himself. The ropes of light wrapped themselves around him, pushing him into the air above Naruto. Since I was a boy, I had the power to manipulate the people around me. At first it was only through suggestion, but as I grew I learned to twist people's minds to will. However, I have my limits, but with the Kyuubi inside you I could expand my influence across the elemental nations. You wouldn't be able to control its chakra, Naruto spat. Of course not, that's why I have this, Sanzo replied and pulled out a diamond. Your first Hokage wasn't the only one who created jewels that gave him influence over the Biju. This diamond will be the leash I wrap around that demon's neck. You're not going to get away this, Naruto said as he put everything he had into breaking his bonds. I already have. Now, I will be taking the Kyuubi, Sanzo said. The pentagram grew brighter and exploded with amazing force, tossing Sanzo's henchmen out of it. Finally, the power is mine. Naruto's chakra was ripped out of his body, all of it being dragged into Sanzo's diamond. The madman laughed as he felt the power filling his gem. Everything he had been planning and working for was finally going to bear fruit. I will be a god amongst men. Everyone looked on in shock, panic welling up inside of them. Until one voice said, I wouldn't count on that. All eyes turned to the man who spoke as he stepped forward and lit a cigarette. Who are you, plebeian? Shikamaru Nara, and I'd like to introduce you to a friend of mine, Shikamaru replied and stepped aside to reveal surprising sight. His name is Naruto Uzumaki, I think you've met. What? Sanzo looked down at the Naruto he had trapped. He can't be a clone. This amount of chakra is enormous. Well, you're right about the chakra, Shikamaru replied, then he paused to blow out a cloud of smoke. It was a decent plan, after all on any day of the week you can usually count on Naruto to use his heart before his head. Your plan would have worked too, if it hadn't been for one woman. Sanzo was beginning to feel funny. Looking down he saw his feet begin to change shape. What's happening? Like I said, you're right about the chakra, Shikamaru said. When I found out your little seal, I began to realize what you might be planning. With that in mind I told our fearless leader here to make a clone and fill it with nature chakra. Nature chakra? Sanzo asked as his skin began to turn red. Yeah, it's a powerful type of chakra that takes special training to use, Shikamaru explained, and then he took another drag from his cigarette. He just stared as Sanzo shrunk more and more, wart popping out here and there on his body. Letting the smoke in his chest out he continued, now, if you don't have this special training, something interesting happens. Sanzo began to scream but all that came out was, ribbit. You turn into a toad, Shikamaru said, and before him was a human-sized toad, and then. Toad Sanzo tried to hop away, but before he could get 2 feet he dropped to ground. Looking at his body, he croaked madly as he saw stone beginning to cover his body. You turned to stone. Everyone watched as the stone slowly covered Sanzo's body, until all that remained was a stone statue of a toad. Too bad for you, Shikamaru said as he dropped his cigarette and ground it out. Then he turned to Naruto and said, now do you understand why it's good to have a plan? Yes, Naruto said and gulped as he stared at the statue. Watching Shikamaru gather all the commanders, Naruto muttered, really happy I hired him.